About video game violence in the wake of the Parkland school shooting last month. Today, hosting a roundtable on the issue at the White House. At that table are CEOs from the video game industry, the Entertainment Software Association, which represents those companies, and the president of the Ratings Board for Video Games. Also part of the conversation, Representative Vicky Hartzler from Missouri and conservative writer Brent Bozell, who both say there is a correlation between violence in video games and mass shootings. Tim Winter joins me now. He is president of the Parents Television Council. Somebody from his organization has a seat at the table with the president today. So you see that you think there is violence in video games that plays a role in the mass shootings that we've seen in America.
Absolutely, we do. Certainly the researchers who profit from violent entertainment have found that they don't have an impact. But if you talk to the Centers for Disease Control, the American Psychological Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Surgeon General's office, and 1,000 other scientific researchers, they've all proved not just correlation, but causation between the content that a child consumes and its impact on them.
What about, I mean, when you look at the statistics of the number of people that play games across the world, does this bear out? If you look at the fact that people around the globe are playing video games, we don't see the levels of violence and mass shootings and gun violence that we do here in America.
Sure, but there are so many other societal issues that play in. It's not just the only determining factor. But according to the scientists that I have spoken to, the issue of media violence isn't the biggest determiner of violent behavior, but neither is it the smallest. It's somewhere in between. There are so many different impacts at play on whether it's Americans or people around the world. What we know is it's not the reason why people shoot each other, but it is a contributing factor.
So if I hear you right, you're saying that it's sort of a terrible soup of problems. You have access to guns, you have perhaps mental health issues that we see in this country, and perhaps the desensitization or glorification that they see in video games, first-person shooter games.
Michaela, that's exactly right. It's not just one silver bullet. We have to look at, people who shouldn't have access to certain guns. The mental health issue is a contributing factor. Violent media is a contributing factor. And when you talk about violent media, especially from a parent standpoint, it is like a tsunami that is hitting them, whether it's music, video games, movies, television. Everywhere they look, there is violent media being marketed to children. So it really is, again, just not that one silver bullet. It is all the different contributing factors.
Tim Winter, president of Parents Television Council. Joining me now, Tanya Basu. She is the science editor of the Daily Beast. And I should point out, you are not a gamer, correct?
I am not a gamer.
You are not a gamer. You're here. You're fabulous. You think it's all a myth. Why?
Well, it seems like Mr. Winter, with all due respect, I'm curious what scientists he spoke to, because there are at least 10 years of research that suggests that there is no correlation, there is no causation, and that the idea that video games promote antisocial activity, promote depression, perhaps cause ADHD, those links are almost non-existent.
He's cited, and our researchers have cited as well, that the American Academy of Pediatrics, a reliable source, the American Psychological Association, another reliable source, they both take a firm stance against kids, young people playing violent video games, even going as far to say that there is a link between playing these games and aggressive behavior.
Well, actually, the American Psychological Association has done a study from 2005 until 2015, coming out with a statement in 2015 that remains true, which is that there is no correlation or causation between aggressive behavior that is, perhaps exhibited by a shooting suspect and video games. This study actually was cited in various reports. It looked at 101 studies to actually analyze this information and hasn't found any link at all.
You don't have any concern about the idea of a young mind, which of course hasn't fully developed, right, until they reach adulthood, being desensitized or seeing violence glorified. And even Tim Winter will even say, it's not just video games. It's access to violence video games, it's access to guns, it's mental health problems. All of that is a terrible combination. Would you go so far as to say that you might be able to find room in his agreement that has validity?
Totally. I think that there is definitely a wider spectrum of issues at play here, but to blame it completely on video games is problematic. The idea of desensitization, for example, sure, when you see a lot of violence on TV or in movies, to see it over time, you get desensitized. Does that mean that that encourages my, potential to cause violence? Probably not. There's definitely a mental health issue at play in that instance. So yes, there's definitely a mental health issue that we have to look at. There's an access to guns issue for sure that we have to consider. But video games and blaming it completely on video games is very problematic.
But I think we can all at least agree the idea of those three things together, someone that is mentally unstable, has access to guns, and has been desensitized. It sounds as though we all feel there's room for discussion. Hopefully, they're having a discussion just like this with the president today, and maybe they'll come up with some good policies and good answers. Tanya Basu, thanks so much for joining me. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Police in Missouri responding to a 911 call ended up at the wrong house in the wrong town, and there was a deadly outcome ahead. We'll tell you how a technical mix-up apparently led to an officer losing his life.